If you're a teacher and your small group time feels like organized chaos, like you had a plan, but somehow it disappears the moment groups start, this video is for you. Because small groups sound amazing, but in real life, you've got multiple levels, different needs, data to track, lessons to plan, and somehow you're supposed to make all of that happen in 20 to 25 minutes without losing your mind. And let's be honest, half the time you're either trying to remember what you were supposed to teach, figuring out who actually needs help, or just hoping nobody interrupts your groups. But what if I told you you don't need more time? You just need a system. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how I run my small groups in a way that is structured, flexible, and actually manageable. And I'm going to walk you through how I plan, how I teach, and how I track progress without feeling overwhelmed. I'm also going to share with you the one thing that I do that many teachers don't, and it gives me so much more flexibility. So stick around because that part alone will shift how you think about your whole rotation. If you're a teacher, parent, or creative who wants to turn your skills into real income, you're in the right place. I'm Ebony from Easy Street Teaching and Learning, and on this channel, I show you how to teach it, create it, or sell it. Let's get into it. So, here's what changed everything for me. I stopped trying to do everything every day. Now, when I sit down with the group, I have one focus, not five, not every skill they've ever struggled with, just one. For reading, my focus is usually one of four things: comprehension, a specific standard, decoding or phonics, or vocabulary, which is huge for my ESOL learners. And yes, I do teach things like morphology or word study, but I usually introduce that in whole group and I spiral back into it in small group as needed. Let's start with planning and organizing. When it comes to my reading groups, I group my students based on data, assessments, observations, reading levels, whatever tells me where a student is right now. This is usually for the group that I will be working with, my homogeneously grouped students. Okay? Now, my other students that are at their stations or centers at different times, these groups are usually heterogeneously grouped, or shall I say, strategically grouped. This will allow some of my stronger students to support their peers that may need that extra support or may need things explained to them in a different way, a way that was different from what they may have received from me. And I'm not locking my kids in a group forever. Groups are fluid. As students grow, they move. That's the goal. Now, I'm a fifth grade teacher and over 60% of my students are ESOL learners. So when I plan for small groups, I'm very intentional about language. Vocabulary is big in my room, and we'll get to that in a second. But I don't plan small groups every day from scratch. I plan for the week. I decide who my groups are, what skills they're going to be working on, and when I'm going to meet with them. Now, just so that you know, I'm big on keeping it real. For reading, I'm usually meeting with my students, I'll say about 2 groups a day for about 25 minutes. For math, I try to see about 2 to 3 groups a day for about 20 minutes. Now let's take a second and talk about what I actually do during small groups. My structure pretty much stays the same every time. Let's start with the reading. So as I previously mentioned, the main areas I focus on during my reading small group instruction is reading comprehension. This is always at the center. We're always working on understanding the text at a deeper level, not just reading the words. Next, I move into specific skills and standards. Whether we're working with literary text or informational text, I'm targeting the grade level standard. I know exactly what skill we'll be practicing before we even sit down. Or we might be working on a decoding or phonics skill. Now, this isn't for every group, but for the students who need it, we get into it. No shame, no stigma. I believe in meeting students where they are. And then sometimes we may be working on that vocabulary. And this is everything, like I previously said, especially for my ESOL learners. We don't just define words, we own them, we use them, we connect them. Quite often, story vocabulary or vocabulary strategy is combined with the reading comprehension skill or the strategy. So we're constantly going over vocabulary. This is why I call vocabulary the VIP of my small group. If my students don't know the words, they can't access the text. And if they can't access the text, we're just sitting around staring at paper. So here's my flow. And I keep it consistent so students know what to expect when they sit down with me. So initially we start with our skill review or explicit instruction. We either review a skill that we've already seen or I introduce a brand new skill explicitly. I'm not assuming they got it from the whole group. I'm making sure they understand. Then we move into introducing the text. I give them a quick overview of what we're about to read. Context matters. For informational text especially, I want them to have a schema before they dive in. I have to build background. Then I move on into vocabulary. So quite often, because I have ESOL learners, I have to basically front load the vocabulary. So that means before we read, we talk about the words. I pull 3 to 5 key vocabulary words that are essential for comprehension, and we go over it. For my ESOL students, this step is non-negotiable. We look at the word, say it, use it in context, connect it to something that they already know. This helps them make that connection. Then we move on to setting the purpose for reading. I tell them exactly why we're reading this text. For example, I'll say something like, we're reading today to find evidence that supports the author's main argument. I want them to understand that the purpose is our focus. Then we move on to actually reading. I have students read and I monitor. So students are reading, I'm listening, I'm observing, I'm taking notes, I'm checking fluency, comprehension, strategy use. I'm not just sitting there looking cute. I'm working. And I usually have my checklist that I'm going over as they are reading so that I can document their progress. Afterwards, we discuss and I ask questions. So we talk. I ask text-dependent questions that connect back to our focus skill. I want them to think critically, not just recall that. That's it. Those are the 6 steps every time. Clean, purposeful, powerful. Now I know you're wondering, what is the rest of the class actually doing while you're doing all this? Well, listen, here's the thing. While I'm running small groups, my other students aren't just sitting around completing busy work. They are working on assigned tasks. My reading centers rotate and usually run for about 2 weeks at a time. Here's what they look like. So I usually have a reading on the computer station. So my students are usually accessing different platforms like ReadWorks, StoryWorks, Epic, Freckle, Common Lit, Khan Academy, Splash Learn. Students are reading and responding and practicing on different assigned skills. Then we have our independent reading station. At this station, students read from their library book or assigned text, and they complete a task that helps them reflect or document what they've read. It keeps them accountable without me hovering over them. And they're usually working on our current skill or previously taught skill. Then I have another station that I like to title Reading Notebook. This is where students are working on tasks connected to our current skill or revisiting previously covered skills. Within the Reading Notebook, students usually have their own personal anchor charts that are there designed to help them remember what strategies we're using as they work through that skill. This is an awesome tool for spiral review and for those students that need additional practice with the skill. Our next station is working with words. This is where I usually incorporate my language arts, my grammar, and or my vocabulary. This one keeps our word study going even when I'm not leading it. And our last station is working on writing. Students are progressing through our weekly writing tasks. By Friday of the second week, I expect them to have completed at least one solid piece. That's the standard. My centers keep the room moving. And because they last 2 weeks, students know the routine and don't need me to hold their hand every single day. That right there, my friend, that's golden. And if you're wondering, what does my math small group instruction look like? My math small group follows pretty much a similar structure. When my students come to me, we usually begin with a spiral review. So that basically means we always start with a quick review of a previously taught skill. This is how we keep old knowledge alive while we build new knowledge. Don't sleep on spiral reviews. It matters. Next, we go into our skill or strategy for the day. And it basically starts with the gradual release structure. I do, we do, you do. That's the classic gradual release. I model it. We practice it together. Then we show our work. Simple, effective, it works at every level. Some students might require some additional practice to show you that they got it, and some students catch on faster, and you may not need to go over or have them to work through as many problems. After the you do, we move into our wrap up. We close with a check for understanding. Did you get it? Was it still fuzzy? Do I need to know more before you walk away from the table? Those types of things. And depending on what the skill is and how the students were progressing with the skill, I assign individualized homework. A review. When necessary though, because sometimes students are good. Sometimes I'll use part of small group time to go over homework that I actually sent home the night before, but only for the specific group and only on what's relevant to them. Remember, personalized, targeted, intentional. While I'm running math small groups, here's what the rest of the class is doing. Similar to reading, we have our independent math station. This is where students are working on tasks independently, building that stamina and self-reliance. Then we have our math with a partner. This is usually what I consider to be like my math game. Students are practicing skills and building collaboration win-win. Then I have my math on a computer. My go-to are usually platforms like Zern, Dreambox, Freckle, Khan Academy. They're all adaptive, all purposeful. And then my next station is Math Notebook. This is where students are creating a new entry related to our current skill. Students usually have their own individualized anchor charts to help serve as review sources, and they have additional practice opportunities while they're reviewing these notes. Sometimes I swap this out for math writing. Now, if I do that, that means that students will be focusing on solving a word problem using the cube strategy or another strategy like think it, show it strategy. And I enjoy this because I know that if students can solve word problems and they're understanding how to work them out and they're getting more practice with that, that equates to a deeper understanding. I try to see 2 to 3 math groups per day for about 20 minutes each. Now, remember that one thing that I promised that I'd share with you? You know, that one thing I do that many teachers don't? Well, here it is. I don't include myself in our group rotation schedule. Let me say that again. My small group, that means reading with the teacher, is not locked into a fixed rotation. So this means when students rotate, the teacher station is not an option. And it gives me so much more flexibility. This one shift right here is what makes small groups feel more manageable for me. So let me break it down to you like this. Let's say I noticed during whole group that some students are struggling, or maybe my high performers finished early and need me to get them started on something more rigorous, or maybe I just want to do a quick skill check with a few students one-on-one briefly. I can pivot real quick, pull those students immediately, and address their issue without disrupting my whole system. This allows me to jump back onto my originally planned schedule and meet with my next scheduled group, just as if nothing happened, no change was going on. So once again, not including the teacher station in our rotation has been a game changer. This flexibility allows me to be responsive as needed. Remember, I'm not a teacher on autopilot. I'm a teacher who pivots when the data tells me to do so. Now, that, my friend, is the easy street way. Now, I challenge you to try this because this part alone will shift how you think about your whole rotation. The last part of my system is tracking. And this is where everything comes together. Because if you're not tracking progress, you're just guessing. So I'll keep it simple. I track what I taught, how students performed, and what I need to do next. Nothing complicated, just enough to guide my instruction. So let me quickly show you what this looks like. This is my planning sheet. This is how I keep track of my groups and skills. This is my student snapshot. And this is how I track interventions and progress. And if you want this exact system already done for you, I've linked it below so you can just grab it and start using it right away. Small groups don't have to feel overwhelming. You don't need more time. You just need a system that works. Until next time, teach it with purpose, create it with strategy, and build income with confidence the Easy Street way. And remember, dreams don't work unless you do.